Hello, welcome to Chapter 2, Lesson 8. We're going to solve percent problems. To scan the lesson, predict two things you will learn about solving percent problems. So, two things that we will learn. How to find the percent of a number. Another thing, how to solve percent problems involving percents less than 1%. So this is actually going to be very important because this is going to actually be a huge factor in whether you understand the lesson or not. This is vocabulary startup. A proportion is an equation that shows two ratios are equivalent. In a percent proportion, one ratio compares a part of the whole, the other ratio is the equivalent percent written as a fraction with a denominator of 100. So we're going to go over what all this means. So in a fraction, we have 2 over 5, and that's the parts over the whole. So what do we call the part? We call that the numerator. And the whole is going to be the denominator. Now ratio. Using the information in the first ratio, fill in the others. So 2 over 5 is actually 2 to 5. Or it could be written as 2 to 5. So now we have to find the percent. This is the part that's going to be very important because this is actually how I'm going to teach you guys how to set up a lot of the problems. So if we have 2 over 5, we have to change that to a percent. So to change that to percent, we need the denominator to be 100. So 5 times 20 equals 100. So I'm going to times 20 to my numerator as well. So percent is 40 over 100. So that means 40% of 5 equals 2. So this is something I'm really going to stress on how we know this, because this is how we can set up a ratio. So the real world link, Kara is on her school basketball team. She has completed 9 out of 12 free throw shots successfully. Write the ratio as a percent and as a fraction in simplest form. So if she made 9 out of 12, that means that is 3 out of 4 because we can divide the top and bottom by 3. So a lot of us know that 3 over 4 equals 75 hundredths, and that would equal 75%. I'm actually going to show you guys the ratio version because the ratio version is something that I want us to be using. So we have 3 out of 4, and that equals, so remember how 2 over 5 equals blank over 100 here? It was, the 40 was blank, so that's how we're going to set it up again. So we made 3 out of 4 shots, and a lot of times people put the missing number as a variable. And we're going to do something called cross multiplying. So just remember, cross division is when we're multiplying fractions. When we have ratios equal to each other, we can cross multiply. So I'm going to multiply my 4 and my x, and I'm going to multiply my 3 and my 100. 4 times x is actually just going to be 4x. 3 times 100 is going to be 300. So we have 4x equals 300. So now we have to in order to get x by itself, if I divide 4 on both sides, divide by 4, well, 4 divided by 4 equals 1, so that's just going to give me 1x. So those are going to cancel. 300 divided by 4 equals 75. So that means I have x equals 75. And in this case, since it's a percent, that's going to be 75%. Now, I know this sounds confusing at first, but we're going to keep practicing until it makes a little bit more sense. So it says, if you know the part of the percent, you can find the whole or the total. You have used bar diagrams to solve percent problems. Double number lines are another way to illustrate percents. So one way to do this is number line. So model it by percentages. Model 25%, divide the number line into 4 parts. And then we can have 40, and then we just add 10 each time. So this is a little bit confusing. If we use the ratio, there used to be a thing that's not taught anymore called is over of equals percent over 100. And this is the ratio we're going to use. This is 10 is. So it's going to be 10 is part of our is. And we have our x. Because x, we don't know what it's going to be. That's what we're trying to find out. So 10 is, that's why we have 10 in the is spot. Equals percent is going to be 25% over 100. Now, before I do this, 25 over 100 can actually simplify. So I'm going to rewrite this as 10 over x equals 1 over 4. And then we're just going to cross multiply. So x times 1 and then 10 times 4. So x times 1 equals just 1x. And then 10 times 4 equals 40. And we do get the same answer as the book. X equals 40. So 10 is 25% of what number? 40, because if you take 25% of 40, it equals 10. So number 2, country music makes up 75% of Landon's music library. If he has a total downloaded 90 country music songs, how many songs does Landon have in his music library? So remember when we go back to the top, it says part and the whole. In this case, he says he has downloaded 90 country music songs. So this is going to be the part, because country is 75%. We're only focusing on the country songs. So the total songs we don't know. So that's another way. If there's no is, you just kind of have to find out which one's the part over the whole. So we don't know the whole because we're only focusing on the 75% of the country music songs. So we have 90 over x equals 75 over 100. Now, 75 over 100 can simplify. So before I start cross multiplying, I'm actually going to simplify that. So we have 90 over x equals 3 over 4. So x times 3 equals 3x. 90 times 4 equals 360. Now we have 3x, we have to get rid of the 3, and this is going to be called inverse operations, so 3 times x. So instead of doing 3 times x, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to divide by 3 to get rid of the 3. Because 3 divided by 3 equals 1. So those cancel. 360 divided by 3 is going to be 120. So x equals 120 songs. And when we look at the book answer compared to our answer, we get the same one. And this is the number line method. So we modeled 100%, and they increased by 30 each time. The number line method is a little bit difficult. It's difficult to explain, it's difficult to learn. That's why I like using the part over whole equals percent over 100. Or the same thing is over of equals percent over 100. So go ahead and try A, B, and C. Just the main thing you have to know is how to set it up, but go ahead and give it a try. So the first thing I did is I wrote down some notes that's going to help us out right over here. So is over of equals percent over 100, or part over whole equals percent over 100. They're same thing, just different wording. So it says A 30 is 50% of what number? So 30 is going to be our part, or the is. So I have 30 over x equals 50 over 100, because of percent over 100. Now 50 over 100 can simplify to 1 over 2. So I rewrote this, and I cross-multiplied. So 30 times 2 equals 60. 1 times x equals x. By the way, if I haven't mentioned this already, 1x, you can also write that as x. You don't have to put the 1 in front of it. That's only when there's a 1 in front of it. So if it's a 2x, then you need to put 2x. So 30 times 2 equals 60, x times 1 equals x, so x equals 60, so A, we have equals 60. For B, it says 60 is 20% of what number? So 60s are parts because we're trying to find the whole. We have the percentage, so we have 60 over x equals 20 over 100. 20 over 100 does simplify to 1 over 5. Now we have 60 times 5 is 300. X times 1 equals x, so x equals 300. So B, we have the answer of 300. Now C is when it does, the word problems are a little bit confusing. Peyton spends 60% of her money to buy a new television. So she only spent 60% of her money, so she only spent part of her money. The television cost $300. How much money did she have? So we have 300 is our part over the whole. We're just going to leave as x equals 60 over 100. Now 60 over 100 does simplify to 3 over 5. So we have 30 over x equals 3 over 5. And after we cross multiply, 300 times 5 equals 1,500. And 3 times x equals 3x. So we get 3x equals 1,500 divided by 3 on each side. So these 3's cancel. And 1,500 divided by x is going to be $500. So C. Hey, look, stuff we've been doing. Oh, this is the method I've already been teaching you guys. So we have the part over whole equals a percent over 100. So what is 15? Oh, this is proportions. Okay, so this is actually a new method. But you can also, it's still set up the same exact way. So 15 is 30% of what number? So 15 is our part, and we have 30 over 100. Now, since we're using proportional method, we know in order to get from 30 to 15, we can divide by 2, and that's exactly what they did here. So whatever we do to the top, we can also do to the bottom. So they did 100 divided by 2 equals 50. But if we did do the other way, we should be getting the same answer. So I'm going to go ahead and simplify. That's 15 over x equals 3 over 10. So 3 times x equals 3x. 15 times 10 equals 150. Because I'm cross-multiplying, because there's equal sign, so I can do this. And then we're going to divide by 3 on each side. X is going to equal 50, just like we got in the example. So we're going to set this up. 225 is 75% of what number? Well, we can do this a couple ways. Let me just double check my math. Is 225 divided by... Yeah. So if we're going to do the proportional way, to get from 75 to 225, I'm going to multiply it by 3. So whatever I do to the top, I can do to the bottom. So since 75 times 3 is since 75 times 3 is 225, multiply 100 by 3. So that's going to be 225 over 300. And that's 75. And we're going to do the other method just to double check our work. 225 over x equals 75 over 100. Now, 75 over 100 can simplify, so we're going to rewrite this problem. 225 over x equals 3 over 4. We're going to get our calculator out. 225, no, not divided. So times 4 equals 900. So we have 3x equals 900. Divide by 3 on both sides. And x equals 300. So whichever method works for you. I kind of like the proportional method because it's a lot of easy math. So go ahead and try D, E, F, and G. Alright, so I did it kind of in a weird order, or I placed them weird. So for D, and I only did the proportional method, we have 75 is 15% of what number? So if 75 over x equals 15 over 100. In order to get from 15 to 75, I can just multiply it by 5. Whatever I do to the top, I do the bottom. So 100 times 5 equals 500. For E, 9 is 36% of what number? So we have 9 over x equals 36 over 100. In order to get from 36 to 9, we can divide by 4. So we can do the same thing to the bottom. So 100 divided by 4 equals 25. F, all the way to the left, we have 7 is 70% of what number? So we have 7 over x equals 70 over 100. 70 divided by 10 gives me to 7. 100 divided by 10 is going to get me to 10. So F is 10. For G, I have 7 is 35% of what number? So I have 7 over x equals 35 over 100. 35 divided by 5 is going to be 7. 100 divided by 5 equals 20. So we get the final answer of 20. One last example. Before 1982, pennies were 95% zinc and 5% copper. If 100 pennies minted in 1980 have approximate mass of 15 grams of copper, what is the total mass of 100 pennies? Ooh, wow. So right off the bat, we know percent is 5%. So we know we have 5% over 100. And if 15 of the grams is copper, that's only part of it because the other part is going to be the zinc. So we have our ratios. So in order to get from 5 to 15, you can multiply that by 3. And since we're doing proportions, we can just multiply that by 3 as well. So x equals 300. So the total mass equals 300. Does it give us grams? And that's the end of the video. So thank you for watching.